I tell you what, I have a very shocking video right here I'm doing here this morning. And by the way, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. I'm on Zero Hedge, and I'm combing it here this morning. And the title right here says, 5 Stunning Facts About America's Prison System You Haven't Heard. And I bet many of you don't even know that the prison system, especially the private run prison system, is on the stock market. It's big money. I call it still on the plantation. But I want to go ahead and read a portion of this article right here so you can get an understanding. I'm going to skip around from time to time and include a link down below. It's at Zero Hedge right here, but listen to this. We've done several exposés on the prison system in America, including the prison system run amongst and expands the frightening peas, selling American dream in the biggest market of all. September 30, 2013. But there's still much more to be said about this topic. America's massive prison system is creating a long list of unintended consequences, some of which will affect all of us in the coming years. To help explain just how bad things have gotten, we've compiled a list of the most stunning facts and statistics on the American prison system today. And here we go. Listen, number one. Because of its prison system, the U.S. is the only country in the world where more men are raped than women. That's almost a 99.9% chance that if you ever get thrown in prison, that you will be raped. I mean, I'm sure that there are a few people that may get by, but it's a bad, sad commentary of the decline in immorality that goes on in our country. Listen what it says. According to the 2011 report of the Department of Justice, nearly 1 in 10 prisoners report having been raped or sexually assaulted by other inmates, staff, or both. According to the revised report from the U.S. Department of Justice, there were 216,000 victims of rape in U.S. prisons in 2008. That is roughly 600 a day or 25 every hour. Now, I'm telling you right now, I don't believe that these are accurate whatsoever at all. I think they're dressing it up because I think there's an old adage, whatever happens in prison stays in prison. But let's go ahead and go with the article here. Those numbers are of victims, not instances, which would be much higher since many victims were reportedly assaulted multiple times throughout the year. Excluding prison rapes, there are about 200,000 rapes per year in America, and roughly 91% of those victims are women. And these numbers, if these numbers are accurate, this means that America is the only country in the world where more men are actually raped than women. Well, what do you expect from a sodomite or sodomite culture? I keep telling you we're wrong. There are certain things that if you continue to keep looking at, if you pay attention, and then really you start watching men, you pay attention to men. I gave you a characteristic. I gave you one of the big characteristics about men who you can tell that are sodomites, or either they have been raped by other men. They begin to take on feminine traits and qualities. One of them is that they, just like, you know, a lot of unruly women with their tongue, they're very loose, they murmur, they complain, they debate, they love keeping up strife, and I mean, just this constantly moving all the time, and they just don't seem to let up, but that's just part of it. But those are traits that actually run with those who have been effeminized or emasculated or any other of the superlatives you choose. Let's go on right here. Even if the number of the unreported rapes outside of prison were substantially larger than most experts believe, the fact that many victims in prison tend to be raped repeatedly would indicate that rape against men is at least comparable to rape against women. Kendall Sprucer, one such inmate, sentenced to 6 years for forging a check for which he hoped to purchase crack cocaine in a, look at this, National Prison Rape Elimination Commission testimony. Spruce said, listen to what he said. I was raped by at least 27 different inmates over a 9-month period. I don't have to tell you that it was the worst 9 months of my life. I spent into, I was sent into protective custody. And the reason why I'm stumbling here for a second, because I'm trying to digest this as I read it. It's the first time I'm reading it as I report it to you. But I wasn't safe there either. They put all kinds of people in protective custody, including sexual predators. I was put in a cell with a rapist who had full-blown AIDS. Within 2 days, he forced me to give him oral sex and anally raped me. Spruce was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS in 2002 and died 3 years later. Now, that is just literally sad. But you have to understand, our country is all but gone when it comes to morals. I mean, literally all but gone. And they don't care. They really, truly don't care. I understand that there are people that are unjustly locked up in these prison systems, and then there are people who are justly locked up in there. But to turn around and not having any protections for those who are paying their debts to society, and they are being treated as the scum of the earth, less than human beings, it's just utterly appalling to me. It's sad. But anyway, you see that there's a lot of rape that goes on in prison, a whole heap, a lot of it. And in this country right here, men are raped more than women, and it's just sad. Number 2, there are more black slaves in America today than in 1850. You know, I constantly try to speak this today, but, you know, it usually falls on deaf ears because anytime I bring up stuff like this, the first thing that people want to do, the people who are racist, they want to label me as a racist when I'm just stating and putting forth facts. I understand a lot of things that I say is better off that you never even hear them, much less them being said, and you surely don't want to see them whatsoever at all, because sometimes being reminded of history that is still prevalent in this present day time is really painful. And most people choose to ignore facts simply because if they accept them as facts, that means they have to do something to alter and change their conscience, which many people are just simply not willing to do. But I'm going to continue to keep speaking truth. I don't care what that truth is. I'm going to continue to keep doing it. But let me go ahead and read this. More blacks in America. There are more black slaves in America today than in 1850. Let's read. Now, mind just first time I'm reading this article, so I have no idea what it says. So we're going to read it together here, okay? This sounds outrageous. How can there be more slaves in America today than before the Civil War? First, consider there are more black men in prison today, that there are more black men in prison today than there were slaves in 1850. According to Michelle Alexandra, an Ohio State law professor who cited the last census immediately before the Civil War, this comparison not account for changes in population, but the statistic is accurate in terms of sheer numbers. Next, consider the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, which read, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Note, there is an exception to the otherwise total abolition of slavery. Those suffering punishment for a crime can still be constitutionally enslaved. In other words, everyone convicted of a crime is at least potentially a slave. Yeah, and I keep telling you, this Constitution that many of you people breathe, believe you're patriotic for, and you live for, so-called die for, you have no understanding what's really truly going on in this country. And it's just utterly amazing how many people just choose to continually keep sticking their head in the sand. It really is. Let me continue on with this. No, there is an exception to the otherwise total abolition of slavery. Those suffering punishment for a crime can still be constitutionally enslaved. In other words, everyone convicted of a crime is at least potentially a slave. The Supreme Court has not ruled on whether or not they technically are slaves, but practically it is obvious they are. So everyone that goes into the prison system are slaves. And since, you know, blacks are a minority in this country, you have the Hispanics and the whites that greatly outnumber them. There are more blacks. Now, don't you think it's kind of funny, though? I mean, look at the colonialism that's going on. We are the minority in this country, yet we occupy prisons. I mean, in extraordinary numbers, more so than the whites in this country, who probably have 70% of the population here in this country. You don't think that's odd? I mean, think about this justice system. What are these judges being told about incarcerating black men in these prisons? I mean, it's just utterly amazing. I still personally think that Psalms 83 is playing out right in front of us. I think that Deuteronomy 28 is playing right out in front of us. And I think that the curses are running. That's exactly what's happening, taking place. Just that people learn how to manipulate words and dress up things and they appease your mind and your conscience, but Pastor Dollar's not blind. I don't care what they try to hide. I'm not blind. I'm not blind in one eye. I can't see out of the other. I see clearly exactly what's going on. So I'm going to continue to keep speaking truth to power. Let's go on right here. Slavery has different definitions, but most of all include the following characteristics. 1, a slave is forced to work under threat of physical or psychological threat. 2, a slave is considered owned property, an asset or commodity which can be sold. Finally, a slave has restrictions on their liberties, including freedom of movement. Right or wrong, a U.S. prison inmate easily meets this criteria. Prisoners can be denied communication with their fellow inmates or forbidden from voluntary association, including union memberships. Obviously, they are denied their freedom to leave the prison, but they are also forced to work unpaid or for extremely low wages. Prisoners are effectively being bought and sold to private corporations who are using them as cheap labor for private gains. There is also a market for younger and healthy prisoners because their health care costs make them less expensive to hold. Private prisons contracts allow the transfer of prisoners to state-run institutions. If this is not slavery, then what is? Whew. I wonder if, of course, most of you don't care. You don't care. But you'll care when you're enslaved one day. You will. You'll care when you're in prison one day with this unjust system that we have. But, hey, that's how Americans are. Number 3, solitary confinement wisely used. Solitary confinement widely used in American prisons regarded internationally as torture. You know, what we do in this country is actually regarded internationally as torture. Number 4, the food service in prison is often stale, moldy, undercooked, unhealthy, and scarce. Ooh, boy. Number 5, many prisoners are forced to work real jobs for private corporations, forcing down wages in the rest of the economy. Hey, I told you over and over again, you know, it's probably one of the best rackets that there is of the prison system, because the powers that be, meaning the billionaires and millionaires and all these people who own these private corporation stuff, they're making profits hand over fist, and they are enjoying these profits hand over fist. And that's why you see that there's a lot of these private prisons on the stock market, because they're traded. You know, human trafficking hasn't stopped in a long, long time and stuff. And I marvel at the people who love dressing up things by saying everybody's been in slavery and stuff like this. And what they do is they, you know, again, they ignore the facts because the facts are too painful to look at and stuff. But I tell you what, I found out that self-education is probably one of the greatest, if not the most powerful tool that a man or woman can engage in while here upon this earth. Because what it does is it gives you self-autonomy, the ability to think independently, outside of the box. No matter what somebody says to you, you are using discernment on an unprecedented scale, which otherwise, if you did not have that type of mind, you will be taken advantage of. And most of us are still taken advantage of because it's too painful to burn the oil to actually read and learn something and then use discernment or self-autonomy to actually come to a conclusion that you've been had, or either somebody's lying to you. It's simply better, in the attitude of most, to just simply ignore things, stick your head in the sand, and act like nothing is happening, because after all, it doesn't affect me personally and generally, or nor my family. So I think more than anything that I just should be happy and stuff. But I tell you what, things are changing everywhere in this world. And like I said before, many people in this country right here, given the economic uncertainty in this country and the way things are going, and most of us, we can't even live with our natural family members. You better be careful how you cultivate relationships as you go forward. Because one day, while you're in your sealed homes, enjoying all the luxuries of this life and stuff, you may find yourself in a position where you have to actually knock on somebody's door against your will, or somebody who you think you know, and actually submit to them. Boy, that'll be a painful thing today, wouldn't it? You have to actually humble yourself. You'll be under forced humiliation, forced humbleness, excuse me. And then you'll be humiliated because the arrogancy and the pride of man is just utterly appalling and amazing. You know, I had somebody some time ago send me a text message and stuff, and of course, behind the scenes, you know, their spouse has been very instrumental in accusing and saying a lot of things and stuff, and then he psychologically through the text message said a lot of things himself. But what's amazing is he totally dissents against one system that it's clear that the scripture promote, but yet he himself can't even live in the system of this world right here, because, I mean, what good is it to be married when you can't even enjoy the fruits of marriage and stuff when you and your wife are constantly at each other's throat? It's just utterly appalling and amazing. And I say that because it seems like every time we turn around, there's something that is always working to divide us as a people. I don't say this to make any personal attack, because what I say to one, I say to all. It makes no difference to me. And just the way I am. I don't hide behind video screens and cell phones and all this other stuff. But I do watch how people love to trap you at your words. Yet when they have been found out themselves, they run like a poached chicken for cover, and they cut off fellowship. It's just utterly amazing. The hypocrisy is it's just unbelievable. It's just totally unbelievable. And it kind of makes you wonder, what is the purpose behind all this anyway? What is the purpose behind all this anyway? I'll tell you what, you do well to listen to those who are wise, so that you yourself can find yourself in a life of peace, because living with strife, envy, and jealousy is just simply ain't worth it. Y'all be encouraged. The King is coming. That's just the way it is. You know what? And there's going to be a lot more painful things that's going to be said in the upcoming days to come, because you know what? If we don't know exactly who our enemies are, you see, Pastor Dow, I don't play the family thing. My only family members that I have that actually even live with me is my mother and father, who are in the faith, and I thank the Father for that. Other than that, outside of them, I don't have one natural family member that I can pick up a telephone, call them, nor I could get in a vehicle and drive to their house. I simply do not care about them, simply because they made a choice and decision a long, long time ago to not care anything about me. That's their prerogative. I don't need them. I don't care about them. I don't need them. My family is those who are born of the water and of the Spirit, and that's good enough for me, because that is the Father's family. You just heard the truth, and that's the truth straight away. Be encouraged.